Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Tips and Tricks webinar, Upgrading Microsoft Dynamics GP. I'm Megan Turco, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we jump in, I'm going to briefly go over how to use your webinar console. The orange arrow on the right side of your screen will let you toggle the control tray open or closed. And at the bottom of the control tray, you'll see a chat window. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar via the chat function. Additionally, on your GoToWebinar console, you should see an area for audio settings. If you're calling in through your telephone, please choose the Use Telephone option, and alternatively, if you're using your computer speakers, please select the Use Mic and Speakers option. And lastly, I do want to note that today's webinar is being recorded. We will send out the slides as well as the link to the on-demand recording of the webinar within about 48 hours. So definitely keep an eye out for that email if you're interested in accessing the webinar again, or if you'd like to share it with anyone who wasn't able to make it with us live today. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's featured webinar presenters. First up, we have David Maharg, who leads Armanino's installation, upgrade, and support teams and is a Microsoft certified trainer with experience working alongside hundreds of companies around the country to define best practices, design GP and other information systems, and implement those solutions as the lead architect and project manager. We also have Rob Klaproth with us today. Rob is a senior consultant on Armanino's Dynamics GP team. He's an upgrade pro with over 50 GP upgrades over just the past 3 years here at Armanino. With over 10 years of GP experience, Rob has extensive experience in integrating external systems to GP, designing reports, and supporting the core financial modules in GP. It's great to have you both with us here today. With that, I'm going to pass the presentation over to David to get us started.
Thank you, Megan. Sure appreciate it. One of the questions that we're going to talk about here is, right off the bat, is should you upgrade? Why do you want to upgrade? And I think that's a very fair question to each one of us as we consider, is it time, and when do we do it, and all those considerations. The most important reason I think you want to consider doing an upgrade is you want to stay current. You want to stay current with the latest software that Microsoft has released. You've all, I think, as I've looked at the attendee list here, I've seen you all sort of progress through your various versions of GP over time, and if you're on older versions, I think you will find the newer versions very, very well suited to your environments. They offer a lot of nice new features. So that means from 2010 and before, it's really time to consider upgrading and staying current with the latest and greatest. GP 2016, for example, was just released on May 2nd, so it's right out of the chute, and it's a new, exciting new release. I think that you'll like it a lot. The question becomes, do we upgrade to 2016 or do we upgrade to 2015? That will be determined on a case-by-case basis. If you can go to 2016 and everything is compatible, I think that's where you want to go. But if you want to stay with 2015 R2, that's a perfectly solid release and will be supported for a long time to come. One of the things that will also be upgraded is, if you do an upgrade to one of these new versions, is your SQL. So if you're on SQL 2005 or even SQL 2008, you will need to upgrade your SQL. The base SQL is SQL 2012. However, SQL 2014 is out, and then SQL 2016 is coming out this year, and it will be compatible with those two versions as well. If you've purchased your licensing through Microsoft, you'll get the latest and greatest version, whatever is available at the time, so you don't have to worry about that. However, if you do provision your own SQL, you'll need to consider purchasing or upgrading that SQL license as well. So there are a couple of considerations here. There are a lot of new features in 2015 R2 and 2016. We're going to talk about some of them here, just to whet your appetite as to what, and you might pick and choose which elements might be applicable to you. But it is pretty exciting things. Rob, do you have any thoughts on the upgrade in terms of why you might want to upgrade here in general terms?
Well, David, thank you. I think that probably the number one reason why you want to upgrade is to keep your platform current in terms of having access to some of the newest things that Microsoft is doing, such as the web client and the copy paste feature for your journal entries and the all-in-one document viewer. Those are probably the three key things that I've gotten feedback from my clients about in terms of what new features they really love in the new versions.
That's great. From a system-wide perspective, the web client is the biggest thing that's come out in 2015 R2 and now in 2016. It might go through your head is exactly why did Microsoft release a 2016 version? Usually they're every couple of years, and they usually are. But in this case, they released a full version numbering upgrade because the 2016 web client is totally different than the web client that had been released previously. Previously, the web client was based on Silverlight. They sort of wrap the dexterity code in a Silverlight envelope and then deliver it to your desktop via your browser. Now they're delivering it through native HTML5, and that offers a whole bunch of flexibility because no longer are you required to use Internet Explorer as your browser. You can use Safari, you can use Chrome, you can use Edge, of course, on Windows 10, and you can use Internet Explorer still. So those browsers are totally compatible with the web client, and it offers a whole lot of new things. So I mention this because if you are in a Macintosh environment, for example, you potentially could use the web client to deploy your GP out to Macs through a native method as opposed to using a terminal server, which is what you've had to do in the past. Document attach is a huge feature, being able to attach documents directly to your transactions in GP. You're really realizing a little bit more of that paperless office concept. Workflow is huge in terms of offering a control that managers can impose on their organization as far as getting batches approved prior to posting. And then, of course, Excel reports and SSRS reports are huge in the started at 2013 and then have increased in their functionality over the last two versions. A new feature in 2016 is the OData connector. Now, this is going to be a wonderful tool for those of you who are involved in Power BI reports. Power BI can use OData feeds from your databases, and you can create outstanding dashboards and the like using Power BI. And then there's a new licensing model, which I'm not going to go into a lot here, other than there are some lower cost licenses available to you as opposed to having to buy full user licenses as you have in the past. So in the modules, we're just going to touch upon a couple of these because this is a pretty long list. Some of the key things are the idea of all-in-one views. All-in-one views are now available for purchasing, receivables, and inventory, and they are essentially one page where you can see all of your purchase orders, for example, your receipts against those purchase orders, your invoices from your vendors, and your payments all in one window. So those are kind of nice things. The copy and paste, as Rob mentioned, is huge, where you can take a copy and paste out of an Excel spreadsheet or out of a text file for that matter, and you can actually paste it into a GL or a journal entry distribution window. So if you have recurring transactions and that you have in a spreadsheet and you're just updating some numbers from time to time, you can just copy that each time and paste it into a distribution list, and rather than typing them in. Some of the Rob, what else do you see on this list that might be of note?
Oh,
We lost him?
Rob, did we lose you?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on the web client. David mentioned Apple devices. That does include iPads. So if you're somebody that loves to use a tablet, whether it's an iPad or a Samsung Galaxy or something else, you will be able to use the 2016 web client on those devices according to Microsoft. I haven't personally seen them working yet, but I know that they have made a big point to make those workable on tablet and mobile devices. So that's kind of nice.
Right, and one of the key features we saw in 2015 was the whole be able to select a printer on print. That's a Microsoft feature that's been around for years and years, but GP's been behind on that. So now if you go to print your checks and you haven't selected your check printer ahead of time, you're not dead in the water. You can actually select your check printer at the last second, so that's kind of cool. So what does an upgrade do for you? I mean, I think I want to touch upon that because it might be important to know what's really going on behind the scenes. Well, an upgrade is updating all of the SQL store procedures, or most of them, I should say. It might update tables. A lot of times tables may not change from version to version. Occasionally they'll add columns or triggers that do different things. And so that's what GP upgrades do. They actually churn against your SQL database, updating those things in SQL. GP on the server side is totally self-contained within SQL. So everything happens within that SQL database, and so, or the databases, as the case may be. So that is really what an upgrade is doing. It is also changing the client code. So we do have to deploy a client on each desktop that has it today, or we would deploy it on a terminal server if you deploy your application that way. It does deploy new code. You can load it in a separate directory, so the two clients can be parallel with each other. With 2015, let's say, and 2016, could be on the same box. Obviously, you would only use one, though, once you get upgraded, because you would have to do that because your database is at that level. It also updates your modified forms and reports, because all of us want our invoice formats to come along with us, or whatever changes we made to those reports, those are changed and are updated as part of an upgrade process. And then we do deploy new Excel reports and new SSRS reports. So you get all of that out of the box with your upgrade. The biggest factor in any upgrade, we found at least, is the compatibility you have with third-party products. Because GP in and of itself, if you didn't have any third-party products, you could upgrade each time and you'd be perfectly good. What we often see is the third-party products lag in their deployment of their compatible code. So even though GB 2016 has been released on May 2nd, the compatible code for GB 2016 is going to be coming out in the upcoming weeks. So on day one, you will undoubtedly not have a compatible code for your third parties. That's not unexpected. You should just know that going in. However, it behooves us to check with each third-party product, and Armanino will be doing that, and you can certainly do it as well, is to, you can give them a call and say, hey, what's your latest and greatest compatibility version that you work with GP on? So that will be a large factor in determining what version you upgrade to. Most third parties are compatible with GP 2015 R2, so you're good to go there. We have no doubt that that's the case. It's just the 2016 code we need to be watching for. Rob, have you seen anything else with third parties?
I have actually. Typically most of our common third-party vendors, such as McCorma and Smart List Builder, those ones get updated almost immediately after the release comes out. Some of the bigger products like Wensoft Job Costing and Olympic Project Cost, those products usually take between 6 months to up to a year for them to update it for the new version. So just good to check with the vendor and find out what their schedule is when they're going to be releasing it.
And that said, we also like to, in an ideal world, we'd like to see this first service pack come out before we start upgrading in a wholesale fashion. However, if you are somebody who is a little bit risk taker in essence, where you feel a little bit more comfortable with that, upgrading now would be fine. We do have a couple of customers that are looking at it. Because they don't have any third-party products primarily. That's the reason why they're able to. And I think that they'll be perfectly safe. 2015 was a solid release right out of the chute. We did not have any major issues. It took them a while to come out with their first service pack, as a matter of fact. We do anticipate a service pack for 2016 within 2 months. Microsoft says that it may not be a full service pack, it may be a hot fix, but the point being is that we probably will see a version, a service pack type of release here within the first 2 months, and that's a good thing because we want to get that out as soon as possible in case there are any bugs at all that they come across immediately. How long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? Those are two major factors that are considering, probably running around in your head as you consider what's this all going to take. It is very important to take a look at all of the tasks that are going to be done during an upgrade. So we built out a tool that helps calculate that. We've got every single task set up in our system, in our tool, so we can calculate pretty quickly and pretty accurately on what it's going to take to do your upgrade. Now, it invariably will probably cost more than what you think it's going to cost. Be prepared for that, but at the same time, Armanino wants to work with you to get the exact components that you want to do in an upgrade, and we'll fine-tune it and do it exactly the way that you want at the end of the day. However, there are some things we have to do to get you upgraded, so those elements will be considered. There are major variables. So the big variables are you going to do a test upgrade and a production upgrade, or are you just going to do a production upgrade? Again, this comes down to the risk taker in you. If you are prepared and you're ready to throw the dice, in essence, we can do an upgrade, come in on a Thursday or Friday and get you upgraded in that weekend, and you can go live on Monday. You can imagine that's the least expensive way to do it. However, it does involve some risk as far as testing and getting everything just right. So you have to be prepared on the back end to work through issues if they do arise. Number of databases and the size of those databases play a factor. If you have 5 companies, that's going to go pretty quickly. If you have 85 companies, and some of you do, it's going to take a long time, in which case we would probably have to start your upgrade a little bit sooner in the week, probably on a Thursday as opposed to a Friday. Third-party products, how many of them do you have and what's their complexity? For example, Winsoft is a pretty complex third party, so that would definitely suggest you want to do a test upgrade, and you would want to make sure that you have time associated with testing it for yourself, because it's a very complex add-in, and you definitely want to run it through its paces. How much training do you want? Do you want a little bit of training on the what's new aspects of GP? Do you want MR training? Do you want system admin training? There are some training elements that we would recommend. However, you have an option to either say yes or no to those things, but we typically offer them because they bring value, and we want you to be able to benefit from them. Another factor is user acceptance testing. How much time are you going to spend testing your upgrade? Armanino will come in and will do a test upgrade for you, get you in a test environment, and then it comes down to you touching the software, getting in there and finding out, does it work the way that I'm expecting it to work? Does it do what I think it should do? And you'll get a comfort level, and then you'll be perfectly good with the go live weekend. Rob, anything else here that you wanted to add?
Yeah, the training aspect of it, the feedback that I'm getting from a lot of our clients as I go out and I do the What's New training is that they learn a lot about the application that they didn't already know, not just from the new features, but just some of the stuff that I show them during the What's New. So the training is definitely a very good investment when you're considering doing your upgrade. You definitely want to incorporate training into that as well.
So when do we do an upgrade? Well, from a technical perspective, there really is no special timing that's required. You can do it at any time during the year, during the month, because in essence, you will just stop work at the time we start the upgrade, and then you pick up work on the Monday usually on the Monday right after that. And you just pick up where you left off and you continue. However, there are some process considerations you might consider. The most often one we see is the month-end process. We would typically do it on, right after a month-end. Might be a good time to do it so that you have your month-end numbers and you've got everything the way that you're comfortable with. Then we do the upgrade and we move forward from there. Some people would say year-end. I don't think that that's required because that just gives you one window each year. I don't think that that's necessarily plays a factor. Month-end might, but year-end probably does not. Another factor that plays out is the reporting requirements. For example, do you need to produce reports through FRX or MR at a specific time during a month and get those out to your shareholders, for example? Those types of things are a consideration, and you probably should wait till after you get that publish date and then do your upgrade right after that to give you 2 or 3 weeks lead up until you absolutely need those reports again. So that might play a factor in there. So what is it, if you are interested in upgrade, what's the next step? Well, we do have what we call an easy upgrade estimate tool, and that'll give you a very rough number, but it'll give you a scoping number for you in terms of dollars. So if you are interested in getting that, we only need a few pieces of information. We just need to know what your current version is, and that's the Help About Dynamics GP area. You can get that version. The number of databases you have, the number of third-party products, whether you're converting from Management Reporter from FRX. That is a requirement. If you're on version 2010 and before, you may be on FRX. Well, FRX is gone. It's no longer supported, and we need to convert you to Management Reporter. It's a very doable thing. We've done it hundreds of times now. So your reports that you work so hard on in FRX will come across. So don't worry about that. We'll help you through. And then finally, we just need to know what destination version you're interested in, either 2015 R2 or 2016, because that determines how many hops we might have to make. For example, if you're on 2010, we would have to go to 2010 to probably 2013, from 2013 to 2016. If you're on version 10, for example, and some of you are, we would have to go from version 10 to what is it, Rob? From going from 10, you're going to go from 10 to 2010, and then start the process. So you are looking at a number of hops, and so that would factor into an overall cost. We will also send you, if you wish, a SQL script and a questionnaire. The questionnaire helps fill in the blanks, where the SQL script will get a bunch of detailed information right out of your database and provide it to us so that we can get the details we need there. The questionnaire fills in those blanks that may be missing, some of the soft components that we would need to know. And so we use those together to come up with a first cut of your project plan. And so we can talk about that. We go over it together. We decide exactly how much training you want, what elements you want, how much user acceptance testing you want, those sorts of things. And then finally, we'll get you a statement of work, and that would be what you would sign off on and move forward. So why do you need to use Armanino? I mean, why can't you just do it yourself? Well, I can tell you why, and the biggest reason is that an upgrade is only done once every 3 to 5 years typically. So what we often see is that you don't want your people, whoever, if it's yourself or your IT department, to have to go through the trials and tribulations of learning how to do an upgrade just to do it one time. It just doesn't make sense. There are a lot of little detailed pieces of an upgrade that you need to do. It is, I'll be the first to admit, it is not rocket scientist work. It certainly is not. However, it's very detail oriented. And if you don't follow the process precisely, you can find yourself going down a rabbit hole and having to dig yourself out. And that can just be very painful from a lot of ways. Whereas Rob and Dave Lippo, my other upgrade person, both of those guys have done dozens and dozens and dozens of upgrades. So they've been through the process. They know what pitfalls there could be, and they can get you out of it. Rob, what would be your thoughts on this?
Planning is definitely the key aspect of making sure your upgrade is successful. So having, the right team assembled when you do the upgrade, not just on Armanino's side, but internally on your side, having a dedicated project manager within your organization to kind of oversee the upgrade project, and making sure that your staff has the time to commit to the project, making sure that they do their testing when we get to the user acceptance testing. Those are kind of the key things that are important to the success of your project.
Yeah. So Armanino is also offering a new service, what we call managed services, and you can incorporate upgrades in that managed service. It will be a monthly fee if you choose to go this route, and if you have any interest, boy, certainly give me a holler, because we would like to discuss this more thoroughly with you. We're in the early stages of formulating how this plan works, but in essence, you would pay a monthly fee, and you can have your upgrades built into that cost so that when it comes time to upgrade, we just do it for you, and there is no separate invoice for that work. So that can be kind of nice. managed services also offers server monitoring, checking backups, checking disk space, that sort of thing, and you would get some support tickets involved, so that you would just pay a flat rate where you get support tickets, get server monitoring, and we could include some hours that you can use against any of our Armanino services, whether it be for GP, Adaptive Insights, integration services. You can use those hours for any of our services, and so that can be kind of nice. I just wanted to tease you with it because it truly is something that we think customers are demanding of their service providers, and so we are offering it.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Rob. Some great content there. We do have a few minutes left for questions, so if anyone has any additional questions that you haven't already been able to put into the chat window, feel free to do so now. We do have a handful of them, so I'll just dive right in. So, I'm sorry, David, you had mentioned that you might have to do a few hops as you're going through the upgrade process. We did get one question: can GP 2010 R2 be upgraded directly to GP 2016?
The answer to that is no. You do need to step through it, either 2013 or 2015. You can go from 2010 to 2015. That's probably the most likely way to go, is to go 2010 to the latest version of 2015, and then go to 2016 from there. So that's what I mean by hops. You can typically only go 2 versions up from any other previous version.
And I should also add that because you're on Service Pack 2 of 2010, you'll want to update to the latest Service Pack on 2010 first before trying to jump up to 2015.
Thank you both. And one of the other questions was, can my team do anything to reduce the cost of an upgrade? I know that you guys had both mentioned some things about having the right team together and making sure that certain, the user testing is successful. Is there any way that you can elaborate on things that a client team can do to reduce the cost of an upgrade from their side?
Sure, we love folks to come alongside us and help us. There are a couple of areas that you can. Most of the upgrade probably needs to be done in a very linear fashion, in the sense that Rob or Dave would follow the process, because they're going to be doing it typically after hours, and they would having another person involved is not always doable, or just isn't practical. However, there are some things that the local customer team can do. They can make sure that they're running check links against their databases ahead of time. That is something that we essentially count on, because that is a time-consuming process at that level, so we want to make sure that you guys can handle that. We can provide all the instructions on how to do that so that you're perfectly safe. There are also things that you can do in building reports and running reports alongside us. Before we do an upgrade, we always take a before snapshot of all your companies, and we run reports in each company to grab those before values. We run the exact same reports afterwards to make sure that those values tie and that nothing during the upgrade has changed any of those values. You can help us run both the before and after reports. In fact, if you have 20 companies or more, it doesn't pay to have us do it all just because we don't have to. I mean, we can bring in some folks from your side to help us get those reports collected, so we would hope that you would. There's also one area in terms of if you're converting from FRX to MR. Usually the utility that converts the FRX reports does a fine job, but it does leave some formulas that need to be touched. And so if you pay Armanino to validate all of those reports, that can get expensive. So we would encourage you to, as part of the process and the training of MR, learn what to do and learn what to look for, and then help the Armanino team go in and touch those reports yourselves. Again, that's not a difficult process, but it is time-consuming, so we would encourage the customer to help us out.
Thanks, David.
Anything else, Rob? Were you thinking anything else that we could do?
I think you covered it pretty well, David.
Okay.
So we do have a few other questions, but we are just about out of time. So if we didn't get to your question today, we will definitely answer it offline. So we will get back to you. So no worries if you didn't have your direct question answered today. Rob and David's contact information is up on the screen. Don't worry about copying it down right away. We will be sending the screen or the slides as well as an on-demand recording to today's webinar, as I mentioned. So definitely keep an eye out for that email. So if you do have further questions, you can feel free to contact David or Rob directly. As you exit, I do want to remind that there is a quick survey, so please just take a moment to let us know your thoughts on today's webinar and upgrading your GP system. And thank you to Rob and David for providing some great content and insights. And then, of course, thank you to all of our webinar attendees for joining us today. Everyone have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.